Chapter 1046. In order to form an alliance with the insane sect, the unifying sect had built a teleportation array in the sect that could reach the endless star system. Yi Qinghan led the 5 of them through the gate and were teleported to the central region of the endless star system. The endless star system was bleak. In recent days, many heroes had risen and constantly issued challenges. Most of them were from the sacred domain. They had hidden themselves from the world, but now they wanted to rise up and defeat all the masters in the open. Even the young masters of the Demon God Mountain and the Sorcerer Tribe were provoked. These young heroes all had powerful Tao protectors behind them, and their bloodlines were exalted. There was no lack of paramount god bloodlines in the giant god level, and their fighting prowess far exceeded that of the current giant god level. In fact, they even surpassed the giant gods of the primal chaos era. None of the older generation of the forces dared to fight these young people. They could only rely on the younger generation. If the young masters of the chaos plane fought, the loser would die. Some of the top holy lands that had emerged recently were related to the overgods of the past. They were either the right-hand families of the overgods or the collateral descendants of the overgods. Their cultivation was terrifying, and they were all kings. Coupled with the overgod families behind them, they did not care about other forces. Back then, the alliance of the 9 great auction houses did not have much of a solid foundation, and it was directly divided by several powerful holy lands. The Songhai alliance was also on the verge of collapse. Now, most of the geniuses had their eyes fixed on the Guangzong, who was at the peak of his power. There were too many young heroes in the insane sect, and only Emperor Yi was the inheritor of the chaos giant god. They did not have a huge family to back them up. As long as Emperor Yi was defeated, the insane sect would collapse. It was just that the true heirs of the overgod had yet to appear, but many of their followers had appeared. Since Emperor Yi could not defeat one of them, he had to challenge them one after another. This exhausted Emperor Yi. As time passed, Emperor Yi would not be able to hold on any longer, and the insane sect's momentum would plummet. Yi Qinghan stepped out of the gate and changed into the Shura King costume. He put on the Shura mask and pulled out the Shura blade. He said to Li Feng and the others in a hoarse voice, "Go to the insane sect. Kill everyone who challenges the insane sect. Leave no one alive. Don't worry, leave it to us." Li Feng gripped his divine sword and turned to lead Jiang Jingtian and the others towards Owl Warstar. Yi Qinghan stealthily moved alone. He crossed the endless star system and entered the Azura domain. Many unfamiliar faces had appeared in the Azura realm. The once prosperous Azura realm had now become a place where everyone was in danger. The Azura king had gone into seclusion, and the Azura battle squad had no choice but to work together to resist. Great Sovereign Azura had fought with all his might, but not only had he failed to reverse the situation, he had even attracted more and more powerful existences. The Azura battle squad had almost been crippled, and Great Sovereign Azura himself had been severely injured. Outside the Shura sect, many powerhouses were cruising around, insulting and provoking the Shura king in an attempt to force him out. Yi Qinghan was wearing the Azura mask and the Azura robe. He was standing on a mountain peak opposite the Azura sect. His sharp eyes were overlooking the area in front of him. He could see every movement clearly. The Azura sect's defensive array had been activated. Not far away, the 6 Paths auction house had also been destroyed. No one dared to accept the challenge. The morale of the people was low, and they were in a precarious state. If this continued, the Azura region would fall apart and become someone else's territory. Yi Qinghan clenched his fist hard. The low-level Azura saber was crushed right away. His divine fire burned the shards and melted them into liquid metal, fusing them with the mountain rocks. Boom! Yi Qinghan leaped down and rushed to the foot of the Azura sect's mountain. There happened to be a young man in strange attire in front of him. There were a few half-step lords with decent cultivation bases as his followers. The group of people was insulting and provoking him. There was no end to their profanities. There were many spies around as well. They wanted to see how the Azura region would resolve the crisis. They wanted to know if the powerful Azura king was truly in closed-door cultivation or if he dared not accept the challenge. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan walked toward the group of powerhouses, crushing the mountain rocks beneath his feet. The powerful giant god young man turned around indifferently and looked at Yi Qinghan coldly. He asked disdainfully, "You're the Azura King? I thought you were used to being a coward and wouldn't dare accept the challenge." "Young master, let me take on this so-called Azura King first and see if he's worth your time." The follower next to the young man drew his sword to show off. "Very well. I'm a ruler after all. Heavenly King Ing, not just anyone is worth my time," Heavenly King Ing said arrogantly. Yi Qinghan's eyes were cold and sharp as he looked at Heavenly King Ing. His cultivation base was indeed powerful, equivalent to some of the inner sect powerhouses. As for the few scumbags next to him, Yi Qinghan thought nothing of them. "Come at me all at once." "I'm in a hurry," Yi Qinghan said coldly. "You have a death wish." The follower's sword was as fast as lightning. Indeed, he was more powerful than an ordinary half-step lord. The sword gleam tore through the air and appeared before Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's divine robes fluttered, and the sword chi dissipated into nothingness. He reached out and grabbed the divine sword. With a gentle shake, he twisted the divine sword into a fried dough twist. The high temperature melted the divine sword. It seemed like an ordinary attack, but the follower's throat was gripped by a large hand before he could even react. Crack! With the crisp sound of bones breaking, the follower's throat was crushed by Yi Qinghan. He lifted his thumb gently, and a gust of divine power with a terrifying will blasted into the follower's mind. It destroyed the follower's soul in his godhead as easily as crushing dry weeds. The follower's corpse fell limp to the ground. His eyes were filled with terror and despair. Yi Qinghan stepped over the corpse. His eyes pierced through the void, and with a destructive will, they blasted into the consciousnesses of the followers next to Heavenly King Ing. The 5 followers let out a low grunt and fell limp to the ground. They were deader than dead. A powerhouse could kill someone with just a look and a thought. They were only half-step lords. The difference between them and Yi Qinghan was too great. Heavenly King Ying's pupils shrank, and he took a few steps back. Only then did he realize that Yi Qinghan was on the same level as the direct descendants of the Overgod. He had bitten off more than he could chew. "Azura King!" Heavenly King Ing was shocked. He roared hoarsely, trying to take advantage of the situation. However, before he could finish, he saw Yi Qinghan raise his hand gently. In a flash, he punched Heavenly King Ying's throat. Bang! Crack! Heavenly King Ying's neck was broken right away. The order of his physical body was destroyed, and he died completely. His godhead was shattered into pieces by a special force, and his soul died on the spot. If you don't even dare to fight a powerhouse, how can you call yourself a ruler? Yi Qinghan waved his hand, and a flame covered the corpses, burning them into nothingness. The Azura sect seemed to have discovered the Azura King. They immediately roared, and the defensive barrier opened. A group of people came out to greet him. However, Yi Qinghan did not enter the sect right away. Instead, he moved, shattering the mountain rocks under his feet, and charged toward the other group of forces wandering outside the Azura sect. He broke the bodies of powerhouses with a raise of his hand, and kicked a giant god's body into pieces, sending him crashing into the mountains. He was extremely ruthless. Boom, 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 boom. Chapter 1047. Yi Qinghan consecutively killed dozens of experts, all of whom were elite kings from first-rate factions. The surrounding spies were so frightened by the baleful aura that their faces turned pale. They didn't dare to move. Yi Qinghan swept his gaze across the crowd, his sharp gaze fixed on the group of spies. He said in a cold voice, "Go back and tell your masters that from today onwards, the Azura region is a forbidden area. If anyone dares to provoke me again, I will kill them all on sight." The spies didn't say anything else and immediately fled. Yi Qinghan returned to the Azura sect and ordered people to set up defenses to prevent experts from forcefully entering the Endless Star System. The Azura region was the first line of defense for the Endless Star System. The Azura region's borders stretched for billions of miles. Yi Qinghan set up 9 big passes and several small passes. The 9 passes surrounded the Azura region, and the entrance to the endless star system was also sealed. The Azura region's powerful eruption caused the entire universe to go silent. The Azura king had killed so many elites from powerful sects, but he had also provoked some powerful sections. In the endless star system, the Owl Dragon region had 5 powerful elites that weren't much weaker than Emperor Yi. There were also more than 30 giant god-level existences. They continuously challenged, and if they lost, they would switch to another person. The Guangzhong sect was beaten to the point of exhaustion. They relied on their numbers and took turns to fight the Guangzhong sect. The leader was the Iron Eagle descendant of the Karma Supreme God, the Iron Force King. He represented the Karma Sacred Land and wanted to beat the Guangzhong sect into submission. He wanted to subdue the Supreme Inheritor, Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi fought 3 battles in a row. Although he won all of them, he couldn't kill those people. He also couldn't use his full strength. This was because apart from the Iron Force King, the Owl Dragon region still had a top young expert hidden, waiting to ambush him when he was tired. Di Long Tian, Gu Qingyu, Qitian Monkey King, and the others were already injured. Xia Ziluo and Xia Chiyue had joined hands and killed a giant god. Even the corpse was crushed by Xia Ziluo. Once someone died, both sides' killing intent was unleashed. The Iron Force King's aura turned cold. He stared at the siblings and sneered. Since my sacred land came out of seclusion, we've swept through 3 regions. This is the first time someone has died, and it was a giant god. Guangzhong sect, I've given you enough patience. I'll ask you one last time. Submit or die. Emperor Yi frowned and asked in a very dissatisfied tone, Iron Force King, are you speaking to me on behalf of the Karma Overgod? Are you still speaking to me? Lord. Overlord. Of course, I am here on behalf of the heir of the Karma Overgod. If you submit to my young master, you will still be an Overgod in the future. If you don't submit, my young master will come personally. I'm afraid the insane sect will have a hard time, Iron King said calmly. It was as if he didn't care about the heir of the Chaos Dragon. We're both Overgod heirs. Do you really think I'll submit? Don't make me angry. Take your people and get the hell out of the endless star system. Otherwise, I'll make you all stay here. Emperor Yi said angrily. Lord. Emperor Yi, you're the one who doesn't understand the situation. You might be a dragon heirs, but you only have the quintessence godhood of an overgod. You don't have a single drop of overgod power or an overgod weapon. How can you compete with my young master? A wise man submits to circumstances. If you want to gain a foothold, you have to submit to an overgod holy land. My young master thinks highly of you, which is why he told me to persuade you to submit. If you don't listen, the next time you come, it won't be us. The Iron Force King laughed wildly. In this era, everything depended on one's heritage. The more heritage the ancestors had, the more powerful they would be. These people with family heritages had an advantage over Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi clenched his fists. He was infuriated. Now, he had lost in terms of foundation. Without the supreme divine power, it was possible for him to destroy any of the heirs of the supreme gods with his individual combat ability. However, once the other party used all his trump cards, it would be enough to destroy the Kuang sect 10 times over. Just then, 4 terrifying auras appeared in the Owl Dragon region. They locked onto the Iron Force King and the other experts. The killing intent made their hair stand on end. They all turned around. Li Feng and the others came with weapons. Their killing intent soared to the sky. Clap, clap. Zixin clapped and sneered. The Karma Holy Land is really arrogant. You want to subdue an overgod heirs? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? The Iron Force King's pupils shrank. He recognized Zixin as a descendant of the Purple Emperor and an overgod heirs. As for Jiang Jingtian and Li Feng, they were probably not much weaker than Zixin. The Iron Force King was shocked. He thought that they were here to subdue the Guangzhong sect. He reminded, everyone, let's mind our own business. We saw the Guangzhong sect first. If there's anything, you can discuss it with my young master. Who is your young master? Violet Immortal stared at the Iron Force King with a pair of soul-stirring eyes. Our young master is Martial King Ji Tianxian, the mighty successor of the overgod of karma. He has long since reached the minor level of mastery in the grand Tao of karma, and his overgod spark has already been successfully condensed. It is only a matter of time before he becomes an overgod. The Iron Force King said proudly. What a domineering name. What courage. How many people in the primal chaos era managed to condense a supreme godhead, but in the end, weren't they all destroyed by the lightning tribulation? Not even their corpses were left behind. They all believed that becoming a supreme god was something that was set in stone. In the end, they all died. Don't you think that using this to scare me is a bit too childish? Violet Immortal asked disdainfully. No need to talk nonsense with this group of trash. Kill them, and their masters will naturally appear. Li Feng was too lazy to talk nonsense. He unsheathed his divine sword and attacked. Sword Chi sword, piercing through the Owl Dragon region and nailing an expert to the Death Star. The corpse was torn apart and dyed the sky red. Clang, clang, clang. The four experts attacked at the same time. Jiang Jingtian fused with the baby Qilin and stabbed the body of a overgod with his spear. Even the overgod godhead couldn't escape. Clang. Emperor Yi seized the opportunity and rushed into the sky to stop Iron Force King. The huge primal chaos dragon's body covered the sky and sent Iron Force King flying with a swipe of his tail. He returned to his original form in the blink of an eye. Holding a divine zither, he played the zither, causing the world to wail. A soul attack blasted into Iron Force King's sea of consciousness. Buzz. Iron Force King's body trembled as he lost control of his soul. Di Longtian rushed from behind and suppressed him. With the four experts attacking, the people of Insane School were no longer afraid of the expert hiding in the Owl Dragon region. They all rushed out, blocking one expert each, and started a brutal massacre. Emperor Yi played the zither, and the tragic melody affected the blood of the experts. The group of experts almost couldn't control their bodies. Their skin cracked and blood stained their bodies. They couldn't resist and were killed by the people of Insane School. After stabilizing the situation, Emperor Yi didn't attack anymore. Instead, he soared into the sky and played the zither. His voice spread out, searching for the expert hiding in the Owl Dragon region. Chapter 1048. Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, and Zixian were all top-notch battle-type existences. They attacked the enemy with absolute superiority, and more than half of the 40 experts were killed in the blink of an eye. Even their divine deity was shattered, and their souls couldn't escape either, dying miserably on the spot. The zither music was mighty. Strands of melody carried Emperor Ye's consciousness in all directions, looking for that top-tier monster. On Shao Dragon Planet, inside an inn, a young man stood on the balcony of the third floor. He looked like a god with a simple temperament. He emitted a thick godly aura. At first glance, one could tell that his bloodline was noble. At this moment he was staring at the galaxy. His eyes flickered as he saw the battle in the depths of the galaxy clearly. When Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, and the others appeared, he had a bad feeling. However, he didn't expect those four to be in the same group as Kuang Zone. He was the supreme god's son of Karma's sacred land, but he wasn't the strongest. His brother, Martial King Ji Tianshan, was the strongest, while he was only the third-ranked god's son, Ji Tianling Kong. There were many supreme god's sons in a supreme sacred land, but there was only one who could truly become a talent and hope to compete for the position of supreme god. Ji Tianling Kong's fingertips tapped on the wood of the balcony. Karma Dao's mysteries were emitted, blocking the zither music and preventing Emperor Yi from discovering him. To be able to hide under Emperor Ye's nose for so long without being discovered, one could imagine that this person's strength wasn't second-rate, but first-rate. Looks like I won't have a chance this time, Ji Tianling Kong muttered to himself. Ji Tianling Kong muttered to himself. He couldn't even defeat Emperor Yi and needed others to pin him down. Now, Zixian, Li Feng, and Jiang Jingtian had arrived. Once he was discovered, he might not even be able to escape unscathed. He hid until Emperor Yi gave up the chase. Then, he took advantage of the night to leave. Whoosh! Ji Tianling Kong left Shao Dragon region in a few flashes. His speed was extremely fast. It wasn't that Jiang Jingtian and the others didn't notice Ji Tianling Kong. They just ignored him and left because there was no need to chase him. Li Feng looked at Emperor Yi and said calmly, "Tell Brother Yi to stop him at the exit of the endless star system. There is no need to waste time chasing after him." Emperor Ye's mouth twitched. He knew that compared to these elites, what he lacked was not strength, but intelligence. Those who could be Yi Qinghan's opponents were all extremely cunning, especially when it came to playing tricks on others. They were all at the level of a divine bird. Soon, Emperor Yi contacted Yi Qinghan through the message talisman. Azura region, Azura sect. Therefore, Ji Tianling Kong twisted his waist and his 5 claws tore apart the distorted space, grabbing at Yi Qinghan's fist. Boom, 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 boom. The void continued to collapse and the space at the entrance became very unstable. Black vortexes appeared and devoured everything, but they couldn't swallow the two. Yi Qinghan's iron fist turned into a palm. He gently spun and grabbed Ji Tianling Kong's 5 claws, twisting them out of shape. Gotcha! Ji Tianling Kong's face twisted. He lifted his leg and kicked at Yi Qinghan's abdomen, wanting to break free from Yi Qinghan's iron grip. However, Yi Qinghan's reaction was faster. The moment he lifted his leg, Yi Qinghan kicked his ankle. Boom! Ji Tianling Kong didn't have time to use his Dao Karma and didn't have time to use any of his abilities. His ankle was broken by Yi Qinghan's kick. Moreover, Yi Qinghan's attack had just begun. He exerted force and broke Ji Tianling Kong's wrist. Then his right elbow suddenly struck Ji Tianling Kong's neck. Bang! Ji Tianling Kong's head sank. He didn't dare to resist and lost his balance. His head slammed into the ground. "You don't even know who I am, yet you dare try to subdue me? Is it because of your bloodline that you're so brainless?" Yi Qinghan disdainfully raised his foot and stomped down on Ji Tianling Kong's head. Ji Tianling Kong couldn't move at all. His life and death were in Yi Qinghan's hands. "Ah!" Ji Tianling Kong screamed. His head was about to be deformed by Yi Qinghan's stomp. If Yi Qinghan exerted force, the godhood in his skull would be crushed. Sensing the aura of death, Ji Tianling didn't even have time to use his supreme divine power. "Fellow Taoist, please have mercy. It's a misunderstanding." "Don't worry. I'll be merciful. I'll gently raise my foot and stomp down hard. I'll beat you so hard your parents won't recognize you." Yi Qinghan did as he said. He raised his foot and used the 1-inch strike to kick Ji Tianling Kong in the chest, sending him flying 100 meters and slamming him into the stone steel. Boom! Puff! Ji Tianling Kong's soul froze, and his organs nearly shattered. He coughed up blood and tried to stand up, but failed. Chapter 1049. Ji Tianling Kong almost lost his breath from this gentle kick. Tears flowed out of his eyes, and his face contorted into a hideous grimace. Yi Qinghan's figure flickered and appeared in front of Ji Tianling Kong. He grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up. His eyes under the mask were even more oppressive than the supreme bloodline, destroying Ji Tianling Kong's resistance. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough, but rather that Yi Qinghan was too strong. He had chosen the wrong method of battle, and he was courting death by competing with Yi Qinghan in terms of physical strength. Even a peak god from the primal chaos era wouldn't be able to beat Yi Qinghan in terms of physical strength. The only ones who could match him in terms of physical strength were the great desolate beasts and the serpent. Hiss! Ji Tianling Kong's legs trembled. His throat was choked, and he couldn't make a sound. He could only hiss to express his fear and plead. Yi Qinghan's eyes were filled with killing intent and coldness. He said in a hoarse voice, "I'll give you 10 breaths of time to persuade me not to kill you. If you can satisfy me with one condition, I'll spare your life. If you can't satisfy me with a single condition, then I'm sorry, but your status as the Karma Paramount Son of God cannot save you." Next, Yi Qinghan released Ji Tianling Kong's neck. Ji Tianling Kong fell to the ground, and before he could get up, he was stepped on by a foot. Yi Qinghan looked down at Ji Tianling Kong from above. Ji Tianling Kong was thoroughly frightened by Yi Qinghan's killing intent. His eyes were too merciless, too cruel, and the will in them was enough to split the sky. "My brother is the martial king Ji Tunshan. his paramount godhead has already formed. Ji Tianlingkong wanted to scare Yi Qinghan, but the coldness in Yi Qinghan's eyes almost froze him. He didn't dare to say anything else. I don't like talking to people with mental problems. Do you think I would care about Martial King Ji Tianxian? Yi Qinghan said coldly. Even if Devil Li was in front of me right now, I could beat him until his parents wouldn't recognize him. As for your brother, if he was already a paramount god, he could summon me to have an audience with him right now. Unfortunately, he's not a paramount god. Who does he think he is in front of me? There were only a handful of people in the Chaosverse who dared to call Martial King Ji Tianxian nobody. Even Mo Li, a great demon god successor, had to give Yi Qinghan some face in the hopes of forming a good relationship with him, let alone others. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan was not one of them. The corner of Ji Tianling's mouth twitched. He was left speechless. Yi Qinghan calmly said, "You still have 7 breaths of time. This might be the last of your life. If you have nothing that attracts me, then open your eyes wide and take a good look at this world." Ji Tianling sucked in a breath of cold air and quickly said, "I have a sacred art here, no need. You still have 6 breaths of time." Yi Qinghan coldly refused. Now that he had the Great Desolation Steel, there was no need for him to learn other sacred arts. If he had the time, he might as well study the Great Desolation Tao scripture. I have a giant god-class divine herb. Ji Tianling grew anxious. He no longer dared to challenge Yi Qinghan's patience. Yi Qinghan stood up slightly and raised his hand to grab the star saber's hilt. With a hoarse voice, he said, "It seems you don't want to live anymore. What exactly do you want? Tell me." "As long as I have it." Ji Tianling's blood froze. He was so frightened by Yi Qinghan's aura that his soul almost stopped working. 5 breaths of time. Ji Tianling's hair stood on end. He looked at Frenzied Blade, which was already unsheathed, and his hair stood on end. For breaths of time. What? The star saber was completely unsheathed, ready to strike at any moment. My yin-yang ring. There's a drop of paramount god power. It's very pure. Please take it away. Don't kill me. Ji Tianling pleaded in panic. It seems like you cherish your life. I like to communicate with smart people. Yi Qinghan slowly squatted down and placed his saber on Ji Tianling's head. His large hand lightly patted Ji Tianling's handsome face. He smiled evilly and said, "I've seen everything in my life, but I've never seen in paramount god or paramount god power. Take it out. I'll trade it for your life. Remember, don't be stubborn with me. I like to play with stubborn people. I can play with you until you can't find north." Yi Qinghan coldly reminded. Ji Tianling didn't dare to play any tricks. He couldn't even use the paramount god power to take Yi Qinghan down with him. Yi Qinghan wouldn't give him the chance to use the paramount god power. His fingertips trembled as he summoned a jade bottle from his yin-yang ring. Inside it was a drop of liquid energy. It was like a jewel, radiating divine light. The jade bottle's material was very precious, but it could still emit the paramount god power, causing the entire Azura region to fall into a deathly silence. What? The paramount god power was vast and mighty, reaching the clouds. Yi Qinghan's eyes lit up as he reached out and caught the jade bottle. He confirmed that this was the power of a supreme god. As long as he activated this power, he would be able to destroy the entire Azura region. Apart from the supreme gods and the great desolate beasts, no one would be able to escape. Good stuff. You gave me such a treasure. Your karma holy land won't punish you, right? Yi Qinghan pretended to be a good person and asked. Ji Tianling was almost angered to death. This was a typical case of taking advantage of others and still acting innocent. He cursed in his heart, "Fuck, my paramount god power was stolen. How can I not be punished?" Chapter 1050. Gradually, many unfamiliar forces appeared in the Chaosverse. Soon, the original division of the Chaosverse was broken. The Auction House Alliance and the Vast Ocean Alliance fell apart. Only the 2 great factions still stood proudly. The Azura Realm and the Proud Sect were still standing. Many forces set their sights on these 2 factions. As long as they destroyed the Insane Sect and took over the Azura region, the Myriad Law region could be easily taken over. those small sects would also be taken over. However, Emperor Yi and the Azura King were not easy to deal with. The name of the Azura King intimidated some people, but the true experts would not be intimidated by the Azura King. Yi Qinghan guarded the Azura region alone. He comprehended the Great Wasteland stele while bitterly cultivating the Great Desolation Tao scripture. However, the Great Desolation Tao scripture was too difficult to understand. It was like a heavenly book. Even with the help of the Great Wasteland stele, he still could not understand it. His mind was in a mess. Looking at the Great Wasteland stele in front of him, Yi Qinghan fell into silence. There were many things that he did not understand. Am I the Lord of Desolation? Who is this Lord of Desolation? Who killed such a powerful Lord of Desolation and forced him to reincarnate? If I am the Lord of Desolation, it means that the concept of hell reincarnation is not fabricated, but real. Yi Qinghan secretly pondered. These things shrouded his mind like a fog that did not disperse for a long time. Desolation was the beginning of all things. It was formless and traceless. It could create and destroy all things. Desolation was also nothingness and real. The sea had a shore, the mountain had a peak, and the sky had a border. However, desolation was limitless. To be able to control the power of desolation, how abnormal was this person? Yi Qinghan felt that the Lord of Desolation was a fucking genius. He stroked the Great Wasteland stele, and his consciousness could slowly fuse with the textures on the stele. Following the textures, he seemed to see a void. Everything was in a state of desolation. There was no universe, no great Tao, and no laws. The power of desolation could destroy endless mountains and rivers in an instant. Although the power of desolates was vague, like the wordless heavenly book, Yi Qinghan had a feeling in his heart that he had once grasped this terrifying power. Now, he was only a thin layer away from grasping the power of desolates. It would shatter with a touch. That clear and vague feeling drove him crazy. He wanted to break that thin layer, but that thin layer was as unshakable as an overgod weapon. At this moment, just as Yi Qinghan was about to fuse with the Great Wasteland stele, a message suddenly came from the Great Wasteland stele. It was extremely clear and definitely not an illusion. The Tao is boundless. The heavens are the shore, and I am the peak of the great wilderness. Breaking through the heavens and fighting the 9 realms, it was difficult to escape from the affairs of the mortal world. 8,000 years of cultivation were all buried in dust in a single day. 9 reincarnations to search for the great Tao, but the path of life is still boundless. Suddenly, he felt that the Great Wasteland stele was alive and had a soul. While Yi Qinghan was in a daze, his soul was directly pushed out by the Great Wasteland stele. His body trembled and he fell more than 10 meters away. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank and he took a deep breath. The few sentences that came from the Great Wasteland stele had shocked him. The first 3 sentences were incomparably domineering, as if they were looking down on all living things. The last few sentences were so pessimistic, as if they could not see the path ahead. Just what is it that has made the Lord of Desolates so desperate? The Lord of a realm, the creator god of the Great Wasteland's domain, can't see the path of life. Yi Qinghan thought back to the secret history of the primal chaos. He guessed that the war between the 2 camps back then was not for the sake of controlling the heavenly Tao, but for the sake of the Lord of Desolates. It was just that in this era, they had already forgotten the original purpose of the war. Of course, this was just a guess. Perhaps the 21 supreme gods had been infiltrated by the enemies of the outside world and were killing each other, leaving the Lord of Desolates powerless to resist. Yi Qinghan looked at the Great Wasteland stele. The Great Wasteland stele had returned to normal, but he could feel that it was more compatible with him. With a wave of his hand, the Great Wasteland stele returned to his forehead and entered his sea of consciousness. Dong dong dong. At that moment, there were several hurried knocks on the door of the seclusion room. Yi Qinghan remembered that he had blocked the transmission talisman. He opened the door and saw that it was Grand Monarch Shura. Yi Qinghan was very surprised. Grand Monarch Shura would not disturb his cultivation for no reason, so he asked, "Senior brother, what's wrong?" "Junior sister is looking for you." It seems to be because the sorcerer tribe cut off the sorcerer's origin and re-established the sorcerer god ceremony. The sorcerer tribe's patriarch, Wu Yi, personally went to invite you. Junior sister couldn't contact you, so she asked me to call you back, Grand Monarch Shura said calmly. Yi Qinghan nodded. With a wave of his hand, a round bottle of divine power appeared. It exuded a strong supreme divine power and was wrapped in a special power that prevented it from being released. Senior brother, this is supreme divine power. I diluted it 1,000 times and wrapped it in my power. You can use it. This is for your survival. There are 10 drops in total, which is equivalent to 10 attacks from a peak giant god. It's enough for you. Leave the Azura domain to me for now. I'll go back and see what the sorcerer tribe is up to. Grand Monarch Shura did not refuse and reached out to take it. Yi Qinghan quietly left the Azura domain and entered the endless star system. He merged with the Chaos Beast, drew an aurora, and passed through a small star system in an instant. In just 2 hours he appeared in the Owl Dragon domain. His speed was frighteningly fast, at least 2 or 3 times faster than Ji Tianling. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan turned around and entered the Owl Warstar. Inside the wild faction on the Owl Warstar, Emperor Yi and Medusa were sitting together. Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, Dong Qin, Gu Qingyu, Zixin, and others were sitting around them. A middle-aged man in his 50s sat opposite them. He was very dignified and had a strong aura of superiority. However, at the moment he was very reserved. He was the current chief of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Yi. Lord Emperor Yi, after the ancestor came out of seclusion and learned that Wu Jiang attacked the wild faction, he was very angry. He wanted to cut off Wu Jiang's origin in public and establish the 6th sorcerer god. Now that he is angry, you must give him face. I also hope that Taoist Yi Qinghan can come back and talk to the ancestor face to face. After all, Wu Jiang's decision does not represent the sorcerer tribe's decision. Wu Yi smiled bitterly. I've already sent a message. It's better for you to talk to him directly. He will make the decision for the wild faction, Emperor Yi said calmly. Wu Yi had no choice but to wait. If this matter was not handled well, not only would Wu Jiang be in trouble, but he, the chief, would also be in trouble. In the past, the chief had a lot of power. Even the Supreme Elder could only restrain him and not order him around. Now, with the appearance of the 2nd sorcerer god, everyone had to step aside. At this moment, Yi Qinghan appeared in the main hall of the wild faction. His aura was restrained and there was no fluctuation of divine power. It was as if he had not recovered his origin. He looked at Wu Yi without any emotion in his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. I am the chief of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Yi. Greetings, Taoist Yi. Wu Yi saw Yi Qinghan appear and quickly got up to greet him. The famous chief of the sorcerer tribe is bowing to me, a person whose martial origin is broken. I am honored, Yi Qinghan said coldly. Chapter 1051. Yi Qinghan looked at Wu Yi with an unfriendly expression. He didn't have a good impression of the sorcerer race or the demon god mountain. The people of the insane sect wouldn't die in vain. Some people and some things couldn't be compromised even if there were conflicts of interest. Taoist Yi, you're too polite. It's all Wu Yan's fault. Wu Yi smiled bitterly. Yi Qinghan stared at Wu Yi. Wu Ye's murderous aura could fool others, but not Yi Qinghan. At first glance, Yi Qinghan knew that Wu Ye's heart was evil. It was an evil that didn't distinguish right from wrong and only cared about his own interests. I've seen Wu Yan before. He's just a child without much of his own opinion. He's just a puppet. I naturally know who attacked my insane sect. Yi Qinghan stepped forward and patted Wu Ye's shoulder. The evil smile on his face made Wu Yi clench his fists tightly. Wu Yi finally understood that he had underestimated Yi Qinghan's eyesight. He didn't explain further, thinking that Yi Qinghan and the sorcerer race had completely fallen out. Unexpectedly, Yi Qinghan said, "The sorcerer clan elder personally invited me. If I don't go, I won't be giving him face. Of course, I have to go. When will the sorcerer race hold the 6th sorcerer race's coronation ceremony?" Wu Ye's eyes flashed coldly. "There's still about 10 days. We can leave now. Then let's go. I'm sure the sorcerer race has invited many godsons from the Holy Lands. I'm also interested to see what kind of existences they are. Yi Qinghan signaled Gu Qingyu, Zixin, Jiang Jingtian, and Li Feng to go together. These four were all battle type. This time, it was very likely that a fight would break out. He wouldn't do anything he wasn't confident in. Di Longtian also wanted to go. His mouth twitched, but Yi Qinghan transmitted, "Longnan, you and Huang, stay here. The house can't be empty. Stay here and prevent any attacks." Di Longtian curled his lips. Now, the crazy sect was like the sun in the sky. It didn't matter whether he was there or not. He really wanted to see those top elites. "This is the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger," Yi Qinghan said with a wave of his hand. "This is the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. It contains my insights. Cultivate it well. As long as you can cultivate it to the 5th layer, I'll take you out to battle." Only then was Di Longtian satisfied. He took the book and left. The 5 experts walked out in a single file, arriving at the portal with Wu Yi. Gu Qingyu took the lead and opened the portal. The 6 of them disappeared from Owl War Star in an instant. The space gate rotated and the stars moved. After about an hour of teleportation, they appeared in the 10,000 Laws domain. From there, they were teleported to the territory of the Sorcerer Tribe. Entering the territory of the Sorcerer Tribe, Yi Qinghan summoned the god-slaying eagle and flew up. His speed was much slower than the experts, but he didn't want to expose the fact that his origin had been restored. Only then could he see clearly whether they were friends or foes. The chaotic spiritual qi in the territory of the Sorcerer Tribe was much stronger than the outside world. There were as many experts as there were clouds. It was more than 3 to 5 levels higher than the endless galaxies. This was the foundation of the Sorcerer Tribe. If the 2 camps really went all out, the crazy sect definitely wouldn't be a match. One could imagine that the foundation of the demonic god mountain wouldn't be any weaker than this. These territories were only the periphery. The deeper one went, the stronger the Sorcerer Tribe. Their bloodline was also purer. There were groups of elite kings, half-step lords, and high gods everywhere. In this era, the heavens were once again established. Chaotic spiritual qi permeated the air. There were far fewer giant gods. It was good enough to see one. If there were 3 to 5 of them, they must be an overlord organization. Wu Yi looked at Yi Qinghan flapping the god-slaying eagle's wings. There was a hint of disdain in his eyes. He didn't understand why the second sorcerer god would give up a powerful elite like Wu Yi for this piece of trash. Once a soul without martial arts origin was killed, the powerful crazy sect would immediately fall apart. The heroes who had gathered would also scatter. Yi Qinghan pretended not to look at Wu Yi. He glanced at him from the corner of his eye and saw the mockery and disdain in Wu Ye's eyes. He knew deep down, but he didn't show it. In the ancestral land of the Sorcerer Tribe, there were as many experts as there were clouds. They all came from various forces. Half-step lords were the weakest. Giant gods could be seen everywhere. Different outfits represented different forces. Some elites from powerful supreme holy lands looked down on everyone. They looked down on people from other sects or clans. However, an elite was an elite. Excluding their background, it was still unknown who would win and who would lose. This caused the ancestral land of the Sorcerer Tribe to be at loggerheads. Wu Yi was restrained and knelt on the training field. He was being pointed at and talked about. The self-mockery and despair in his eyes made people despise him even more. Of course, this was the second sorcerer god's way of venting Yi Qinghan's anger. It was just that Wu Yi was unlucky. Ji Tianshan, King Wu's son, Coiling Tiger's son, Azure Dragon's son, and a large group of experts wandered back and forth in the ancestral land of the Sorcerer Tribe. They looked at the steels. Many of the steels were open to the public. These true elite kings and divine sons of the various holy lands no longer cared about Wu Yi. A person who was about to become a piece of trash was useless no matter how strong he was before. The real onlookers were the ordinary kings. Chapter 1052. Wu Yi was shocked by the light in Yi Qinghan's eyes. He took a few steps back and his face turned ugly. Yi Qinghan, don't go too far. This is the decision of the Sorcerer Tribe. An outsider like you can't interfere. Wu Yi scolded angrily. Yi Qinghan's eyes were filled with ferocity as he stared coldly at Wu Yi without saying a word. Wu Yi suddenly felt like he was being stared at by the second-generation sorcerer god. He didn't dare to refute. So he's Yi Qinghan. Didn't they say that his martial arts origin was destroyed? How dare he be so arrogant? Does he think this is his endless galaxy? Maybe his brain is damaged. How dare he be so arrogant when his martial arts origin is destroyed? This is not the era of the past. Other than the divine son, who dares to be so arrogant among the younger generation? The people from the powerful forces laughed and mocked as they surrounded them, ready to watch a good show. Wu Yi was enraged by the comments of others. The glory of the sorcerer tribe couldn't be lost. They couldn't be weak now, even if it meant being punished by the sorcerer god. Yi Qinghan, I'm tolerating you because you're a guest, but don't be so shameless. About punishing Wu Jiang, it's the sorcerer god's decision. He made a mistake and should be punished. What status do you have to stop him from being punished? Wu Yi asked angrily. Wu Jiang didn't dare to stand up because the patriarch was the patriarch. He still had his family. Yi Qinghan shook his head. He didn't ask Wu Jiang to stand up to stop him from being punished, but for another purpose. Wu Jiang, whether you stand up or kneel, I'll ask you one thing. Who ordered the sorcerer tribe to kill the people of the crazy sect? Yi Qinghan asked coldly. Senior Yi. Wu Jiang clenched his fists so tightly that his flesh cracked. He lowered his head, unwilling to look at Yi Qinghan. Raise your head. Answer me. It's you or not. Yi Qinghan squatted down and held Wu Jiang's chin. His eyes flashed and shot into Wu Jiang's eyes. Wu Yan lost control on the spot and muttered, No. However, before Wu Jiang could finish his sentence, Wu Yi immediately rushed forward and kicked Yi Qinghan in the air, sending Wu Jiang flying dozens of feet away. He landed heavily on the ground and fainted on the spot. Boom! Gu Qingyu gained the upper hand after striking, cleaving open the martial arts stage with one saber, almost chopping off Wu Ye's leg. 12 different auras soared into the sky and locked onto Yi Qinghan and the other 4. Yi Qinghan immediately reacted. These were the auras of the 12 great inheritances of the sorcerer tribe. They were the inheritances of gold, wood, water, fire, earth, nature, wind, thunder, lightning, goblet, martial way, and divine ability. Ding! Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, and the others unsheathed their divine weapons at the same time. The spear of time and the divine weapons aura dominated the scene. Each of them stood guard beside Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists. Seeing that Wu Jiang was almost kicked to death, the coldness in his eyes became even more violent, as if he wanted to freeze the martial arts stage. Are you afraid that he will tell the truth and be punished by the second sorcerer god? Yi Qinghan sneered and mocked in a hoarse voice. You're just showing that you're hiding something. Since you attacked him, it means that you're guilty. Yi Qinghan, don't go overboard. I'm the current clan leader of the sorcerer tribe. I personally invited you. It's fine if you're not grateful, but you don't give the sorcerer tribe any face. Today, I'll eliminate all of you. Wu Yi said angrily. Wu Yi waved his hand and 12 middle-aged burly men appeared on the martial arts stage. They were all dressed in ancient sorcerer robes and each represented their own inheritances. The 12 great inheritances were the elites of the elites and were extremely powerful. The 12 of them directly surrounded Yi Qinghan and the others. Everyone watched the conflict between Yi Qinghan and the sorcerer tribe as if they were watching a good show. They retreated far away to give them space to fight. Ji Tianling Kong looked at Yi Qinghan curiously. He felt that he had seen him somewhere before. Ji Tianling Kong felt a chill run down his spine and broke out in cold sweat. He looked at Yi Qinghan's hair and eyes and seemed to remember something. He couldn't help but tremble and retreat more than 10 steps. Yi Qinghan ignored this group of people. They wouldn't dare to attack, that was for sure. The second sorcerer god wouldn't allow them to attack, so he took a healing elixir from Jiang Jingtian's hand and walked directly to Wu Jiang, putting it into his mouth. Wu Jiang slowly woke up, his eyes full of fatigue and frustration. Senior, it was my impulse that caused the deaths of so many people in the crazy sect. This matter has nothing to do with the sorcerer tribe. Please kill me and use my head as a sacrifice. Wu Zhang's eyes were filled with the will to die. He didn't want to struggle anymore and said in despair, "How much is your head worth? Can it appease the 30 lives of the crazy sect? Nearly 20 children and more than 10 elders of the inner sect. They are my comrades who fought side by side with me. Even if you had 10 lives, it wouldn't be enough." Yi Qinghan was furious. He grabbed Wu Zhang's collar and roared, "Wu Jiang, don't think that I don't know who's behind this. Don't think that you can protect him. At most, you can protect him from losing his reputation, but you can't protect his life." A dignified voice filled with mockery and disdain broke the silence of the martial arts arena. Then a figure in a black robe stepped out. He exuded a powerful chaotic aura that suppressed the aura of everyone around him. Even the ordinary divine sons felt their hair stand on end. I didn't expect the sorcerer tribe to bully their customers. They invited us here to bully us with numbers. The black-robed man sneered, not giving any face. "Who are you?" Wu Yi frowned and asked. "I'm the divine python dragon. When I was fighting on the battlefield, your grandfather's grandfather was still wearing diapers. Are you going to attack me as well?" The man asked coldly. Yi Qinghan was stunned. He didn't expect the divine python dragon to transform. It seemed that he had recovered about 70 to 80% of his strength. "So it's Senior Python Xinjiao. Greetings." Yi Qinghan bowed slightly and hurriedly said, "I heard that your martial Dao source was shattered by someone. Tsk. What a piece of trash. Back then, I wanted you to be my right-hand man. But now, it seems like I'm disappointed." The serpent god dragon stared at Yi Qinghan. When he realized that Yi Qinghan truly had no divine power, his eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly and pretended to be heartbroken. He lied and said, "I had no choice in this matter. Back then, I obtained a chaos giant god-level treasure and wanted to give it to you to heal your injured body. So, I entered the divine demon territory from the endless star system. In the end, my tracks were exposed and I was attacked by the Sage King of Demon God Mountain, the 4 great battle constitutions, and the railing leopard of the divine demon territory. There were also some good-for-nothing overgods. I barely escaped with my life. Unfortunately, the treasure was stolen and my martial arts origin was shattered. I failed." The divine python dragon's dignified face showed some anger. It felt that this matter was his fault. The treasure had been stolen by the people of Demon God Mountain. Wasn't this like pulling a tooth from the tiger's mouth? Damn it. The Demon God Mountain is too bold. How dare they steal my treasure? The divine python dragon's voice was like thunder. A terrifying power erupted from his muscular body. It was enough to shake mountains and shake the 9 heavens with a stomp. Boom, boom. The martial arts arena shook. The peerless divine power from the Chaos era was vast and mighty. Some of the divine sons turned pale from the pressure, let alone the elites of the Sacred Land puppet factions. Everyone retreated, not daring to look at the divine python dragon. Wu Yi was even more shocked. This divine python dragon was the mount of the sorcerer god's Guangwu battle body. Its strength was definitely on the same level as the Guangwu battle body. This guy was comparable to the second sorcerer god. Who in this era would dare to provoke him? Chapter 1053. Yi Qinghan's words triggered the serpent god dragon's temper. The serpent god dragon's breathing quickened. He felt that he had lost all his face. Furthermore, Yi Qinghan, who had been worried about his injuries, had been insulted by him. He really shouldn't have done that. "Kid, don't worry. When I see the Demon God Mountain's battle constitution, I'll definitely break their skulls for you and let them die with your martial arts origin." The serpent said furiously. Gulped. Wu Yi swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His forehead was covered in sweat. He did not expect that other than the second sorcerer god, there was another person who was still alive. Even Yushin of Demon God Mountain was not from that era. Back then, Yushin was just a little kid. At that time, the second sorcerer god and the serpent god had already participated in the War of the Gods. Wu Yi hurriedly bowed and said, "Senior, I was unaware of your arrival. Please forgive me, Get lost, I'm here to look for the second King Yenluo. Besides, Yi Qinghan is one of my people. If you make a fuss again, I'll pull out your teeth. The python Shenjiao scolded. Wu Yi didn't dare to talk back after being scolded. He could only nod and agree, but he was cursing in his heart. Fuck, how does this Yi Qinghan know everyone and have an affair with everyone? Wu Yi felt helpless. He cursed in his heart, but he had no choice but to greet her with a smile. He squeezed out a smile on his bitter face and said, "Senior, don't worry. Fellow Taoist Yi and I were just playing around. How could I really attack?" Everyone felt that it was a pity that such a good show had been ruined by the serpent god. However, no one dared to say anything, not even the divine princes. If they did not become supreme gods, their status was only slightly higher than the serpent god. In terms of strength, they were not as strong as the serpent god. After all, the serpent god was in existence from the chaotic era. At this moment, a terrifying aura enveloped the entire ancestral land of the sorcerer tribe, enveloping every powerhouse. No one was able to escape. The second-generation shaman god appeared. He had white hair, and his wrinkled skin looked extremely ugly. However, he was still dignified, and no one dared to blaspheme his divine might. So it's Brother Python Shenjiao. I didn't expect that after so many years, I would still be able to see the person from back then. When I woke up, everything had changed, the second sorcerer god said with a hoarse voice. This old man is quite pitiful. I was actually sealed in ice by the ice source for dozens of epochs. Even my bodily functions were sealed in ice. That's how I managed to survive until now. I thought that the people from back then had all died. I didn't expect to meet one here, so I came to pay a visit. Seeing you today, I didn't expect you to still be so vigorous despite your age. The serpent laughed as he stared at the second sorcerer god. He wanted to know how much life force he had left. It seemed like he was up to no good. This old man is getting old, not as good as fellow Taoist. I seized my life from the heavens, buried myself for dozens of epochs, living an ignoble existence until now. The second Lord of Sorcerer pretended not to know. He put on a fake smile and gestured with his hand. The sixth Lord of Sorcerer's coronation ceremony will be held in 2 days. Today, I'll invite all of you who have come from afar to a banquet. The serpent sneered and did not make a sound. It quietly followed the second sorcerer god to the sorcerer shrine. All of the elite experts followed. Some of the guardians of the divine sons appeared and whispered something in their ears. It seemed like they had some special news. Ji Tianling stared at Yi Qinghan's back and became more and more certain of his thoughts. However, he did not tell anyone. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He even wanted to borrow someone else's blade to kill Yi Qinghan, but not Yi Qinghan's blade. As long as Ji Tianxin and Ji Tianjin were dead, most of the family's resources would belong to him. Nurturing 3 divine sons was naturally not as good as nurturing 1 divine son, not to mention that the good resources of the family were all taken by the 2 of them. Although Ji Tianling was a divine son, he was not favored. Seeing Ji Tianxin standing proudly like a crane in a flock of chickens, a trace of killing intent appeared on the corner of his mouth. Soon, everyone arrived outside the sorcerer shrine. In front of them was a huge statue of the sorcerer god. Naturally, it was the first sorcerer god. It was vivid and lifelike, standing tall for dozens of eras before the sorcerer shrine. Even now, it was still intact. It was emitting a dense divine aura, as if it was a real paramount god. Everyone did not dare to breathe or look at it directly, including the serpent. Only those who had experienced that era and understood what kind of existence the paramount gods were would understand how terrifying such experts were. The sorcerer god's robes were fluttering in the wind. He carried the sky-splitting divine crossbow on his back and stood on the Dijiang divine beast. He held the sorcerer god's spear in his hand. Yi Qinghan raised his head to look at the sculpture. It was a full 10 feet tall, and every rune had been carefully polished by an expert. It was a perfect representation of the first sorcerer. Perhaps this was the masterpiece of the first sorcerer himself. Looking at the statue of the sorcerer god, Yi Qinghan suddenly had a flash of light in his mind. He felt as if he knew the sorcerer god. The second sorcerer god knelt down. The serpent also knelt down without hesitation. Immediately after, all the elites of the sorcerer race knelt down. Then, all the elites of the sorcerer race and the divine sons of the Holy Land knelt down and kowtowed respectfully. They did not feel embarrassed at all. Their ancestors had fought for the paramount gods and knew that the paramount gods were not to be blasphemed. Zixian also knelt down. That kind of reverence came from the bottom of his heart. He would not allow himself to blaspheme the sorcerer god. Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, and Gu Qingyu looked at each other in dismay. They then looked at Yi Qinghan and realized that he had no intention of kneeling. Yi Qinghan was somewhat absent-minded. Looking at the statue, the sense of déjà vu became stronger and stronger. The statue of the sorcerer god seemed to have come alive. It wanted to break through and fight the 9 heavens again. Its eyes met with Yi Qinghan's, and its aura suppressed the heavens. It was as if it could suppress all creatures with a wave of its hand. The world rumbled continuously. A tragic melody seemed to come from the statue, but it also seemed to come from the end of the wilderness. It made people's blood boil. It was as if they could see the primal chaos era's gods fighting at the end of the wilderness. Li Feng, Jiang Jingtian, and Gu Qingyu knelt down on one knee. Yi Qinghan was absent-minded, but they were not. The second-generation sorcerer knelt 3 times and kowtowed 9 times. Then he suddenly turned his head and saw Yi Qinghan's eyes. He frowned. Everyone had knelt except for Yi Qinghan. No matter what the reason was, it was blasphemy. Yi Qinghan, why don't you kneel in front of the sorcerer ancestor? Are you stupid? The second sorcerer god scolded angrily. Yi Qinghan trembled and finally woke up from his stupor. He muttered, "Old senior, why am I so familiar with the sorcerer ancestor's appearance? Nonsense. This is your first time seeing Father God's statue. How can it be familiar?" The second sorcerer god was very dissatisfied, but when he saw Yi Qinghan's serious expression, he was also puzzled. Yi Qinghan had completely woken up and was silent. He attributed this feeling to the memories of the Desolation Master and did not say anything else. The more he said, the more he would expose himself. However, at this moment, Wu Yi found an opportunity to kill Yi Qinghan. He bowed and said, "Old ancestor, Yi Qinghan has repeatedly blasphemed the sorcerer race's decision. He even cut off the god-binding chain on Wu Zhang's body. Now, he has blasphemed the sorcerer ancestor's statue. This is blasphemy against the supreme divine might. This person's martial Dao origin is shattered, but he is still so arrogant. This crime deserves death. I implore the old ancestor to give the order to take this person down." Yi Qinghan looked at Wu Yi silently and said calmly, "The reverence I have for the sorcerer god is engraved in my heart. Not kneeling doesn't mean I don't respect him. You want to kill in front of the sorcerer ancestor's statue. Is this respect for the supreme divine might?" Chapter 1054. Wu Yi and Yi Qinghan were at each other's throats, their eyes filled with killing intent. The second sorcerer god looked down at the two of them and scolded, "Where are the two of you? Calm down. I'm not dead yet. Fight when I'm dead." Yi Qinghan snorted and stopped talking. After all, he still had to give face to the second sorcerer god. Wu Yi didn't dare to blaspheme his ancestor's divine might. He lowered his head and didn't dare to speak. The second sorcerer god was displeased. Even the divine sons of the supreme holy lands were trembling, let alone the people of the sorcerer race. The atmosphere became extremely awkward. Many people looked at Yi Qinghan strangely. They didn't understand why he was so domineering and didn't even give face to the chief of the sorcerer race. Moreover, the second sorcerer god didn't reprimand him too much. Instead, he treated him as a direct descendant. "All right, after worshipping the ancestors, we'll have a meal together and arrange accommodation for everyone. The ceremony will be held in 3 days," said the second sorcerer god. At this moment, 3 people appeared in the ancestral land of the sorcerer race. They were none other than the sworn enemies of the sorcerer race, Yushin of the demon god mountain, Mo Li, and Qin Wenin. They rushed to the square in front of the sorcerer god temple. Their auras were restrained, but they came uninvited. Moreover, they were 3 important figures. Obviously they came prepared. Haha, the sorcerer race has re-established the sorcerer god. As people of the demon god mountain, how can we not come to celebrate? Yoshin's voice was like thunder. His old body emitted a powerful aura. His chaotic aura was several times stronger than ordinary people. He was close to the second sorcerer god. The strongest people in the world appeared one after another. The second sorcerer god, the serpent, and Yushin were all people from the chaos era. The weakest was Yushin, but his foundation was deeper than the serpents. Yushin and the second sorcerer god had survived until now by burying themselves. They were definitely people who could cover the sky with a wave of their hands. Emoli looked disdainfully at Wu Yi, who was kneeling on the training ground. He shook his head and sighed. It was a pity that this kind of person was sacrificed by the sorcerer race. It was a pity. Qin Wenyin had already obtained the complete inheritance, and the demonic god mountain had provided him with countless resources. His current cultivation base was close to Emoli's, and he was no different from the paramount godchild. As long as the godchild didn't become a paramount godchild, he wouldn't be able to suppress her. The moment Qin Wendian saw Yi Qinghan, he couldn't help but grin. Even after so many years apart, it didn't affect the kinship between the two of them. "Uncle, where have you been all these years?" "I went back to look for you many times, but I couldn't find you." Qin Wenyin pursed his lips, ignoring the crowd as he walked up to Yi Qinghan and asked excitedly. Yi Qinghan did not show much emotion. He only calmly replied, "My origin was shattered, so I went into seclusion for a period of time. This era belongs to you now. Uncle, I'll protect you from now on. If anyone dares to touch a single strand of your hair, I will pluck them until they become bald." Qin Wenyin vowed solemnly. The corner of Emoli's mouth twitched, and his heart burned with anger. Could it be that all these years of nurturing were all for Yi Qinghan? Yushin also frowned. Originally, they were here to provoke the shaman race, but they didn't expect that the ethereal body they brought would betray them in front of everyone. This was a slap to their face. Yi Qinghan smiled. It seemed that his efforts back then weren't wasted. A single sentence from Qin Wenyin was enough. "Uncle will rely on your protection from now on. Uncle is very unhappy to see Emoli. Can you help me pluck off 2 strands of his hair?" Yi Qinghan asked calmly. Qin Wenyin didn't even hesitate as he turned to look at Emoli. His figure flashed, and his jade-like hand grabbed something from afar, directly plucking off more than 10 strands of Emoli's hair. His speed was extremely fast, and without leaving a trace, he returned to Yi Qinghan's side. He stretched out his small hand and presented the 10 strands of hair to Yi Qinghan, snickering as if he was presenting a treasure. "Throw it away." Yi Qinghan looked at Emoli emotionlessly with a cold smile on his face. Cracked Emoli clenched his fists so tightly that his bones almost broke. He glared at Yi Qinghan, the anger in his eyes almost spewing out. Everyone's mouth twitched as they looked at Qin Wenyin in disbelief. They didn't think that she would really listen to Yi Qinghan's words and humiliate Emoli without hesitation. Seeing the powerful demon god's successor in such a sorry state, some people actually laughed. Yoshin's face was filled with anger. She really didn't know what kind of drug Yi Qinghan had fed Qin Wenyin, but there was nothing she could do. Now that she was angry at the ethereal body, she would definitely turn around and leave, not giving the demon god mountain any face. The second-generation sorcerer god frowned. He didn't think that Yi Qinghan could really control the ethereal body, nor did he think that the ethereal body would grow so quickly. The serpent stared at Yushin and Emoli from the demon god mountain and asked disdainfully, "Where did this trash come from? How come I don't know any of them?" Yoshin's aura erupted as she vented her anger, glaring at the serpent. "Trash? You dare to be angry at me?" Boom. The serpent waved its giant hand at Yushin. The entire sky was smashed apart, and everyone was sent flying. Bang! He saw that there was indeed a special small table beside the second sorcerer. Behind the small table was a long table that could seat 4 people. He led Jiang Jingtian and the others to sit there. Many of the divine sons were very dissatisfied. What right did a mere Yi Qinghan have to sit in front of the serpent? Moreover, The others were even more obscure. Only Li Feng and Gu Qingyu were somewhat famous, but they were obviously not as good as the Son of God. Among those who were qualified to sit there, Zixian was not qualified. As expected, Emoli took advantage of the situation and said disdainfully, "Senior, although you're a second-generation senior, you shouldn't insult everyone like this. Letting Yi Qinghan sit beside you, where do you place all the heroes of the world?" That's right. Today, all 21 of the divine sons of the supreme holy lands are gathered here, giving the sorcerer race enough face. However, your noble clan has arranged for a trash with a shattered martial origin to sit at the head. Aren't you looking down on us too much? Martial King Ji Tianxian asked in a low voice. Many of the divine sons supported Martial King Ji Tianxian, including the direct descendant of the Purple Emperor, the Purple Sage. His status was much higher than Zixian's. After all, Zixian was a woman, and there were many things in the Z clan that she could not come into contact with. However, the Purple Sage could. Yi Qinghan sat in front of the table and did not make a sound. Instead, he quietly looked at the second sorcerer god, waiting to see how he would handle this. The second sorcerer god frowned and said with a hoarse voice, "Qinghan is my only disciple, which is equivalent to my son. Why can't he sit beside me in such an important ceremony?" Everyone still did not buy it, but the discussion was quieter. After all, this was a family matter. However, Emoli was unwilling to give up. Yi Qinghan had humiliated him in front of everyone, and this time, he had to get it back no matter what. So he is the only descendant of the second-generation senior. His cultivation must be astonishing. Even if his martial origin is shattered, he should still be able to win against the majority of the world's heroes. If he can't win, how can he prove that he is your disciple? Isn't that right, everyone? Emoli coldly looked at Yi Qinghan, preparing to kill with a borrowed knife and humiliate Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan calmly looked at Emoli. If he wanted to compete with him, he would let Emoli win even if he lost his head. Of course. If he is the second-generation senior's disciple, I'm afraid even some of the divine sons might not be his match. Although his martial origin is shattered, he should still be able to win against us elite servants. Taoist Yi, why don't we have a friendly spar? I will order my follower, servant Song Xian, to fight with you. As long as you can win, I believe no one will doubt your identity anymore. Emoli clenched his fists and coldly stared at Sky Overlord. He said with a hoarse voice, "Sky, you may be an overlord in the eyes of others, but not in my eyes. The ethereal physique is my family, not a servant or a subordinate. I don't care what she wants to do. If you think that Song Xian isn't a match for her, then tell him to step down." There were many large territories that he had never been to before, and if the 21 sacred lands were to divide the spoils equally, they would be able to get a large share. The other sacred lands naturally had no objections. Yi Qinghan raised his brows. He was naturally unwilling. What happened back then had nothing to do with the Kuang sect, and the Azura region would not be involved. The Myriad Law domain would also be divided, not to mention the Six Paths auction house. Since Senior has instructed us to do so, we have no problem with it. We will naturally take back what belonged to us back then, and we won't be greedy for what doesn't belong to us. Many divine children nodded and said, Demon God Mountain didn't refuse either. Back then, their territory was the largest, but now, it wasn't that large. They hadn't taken back much of their lost land. Now that they could take it back without any effort, why not? Yi Qinghan picked up a cup of divine wine, took a sip, and said calmly, I have no objection to your division of forces, but the territories of the Kuang Sect Alliance, including the Myriad Law domain, Six Paths domain, and Azura region, you'd better not touch them. I won't give them away, not even an inch. Who do you think you are? Endless Galaxy can be left to you, but Azura region, Myriad Law domain, and Six Paths domain must be taken out. Martial King Ji Tianxian reprimanded coldly. Who I am is not important. What's important is that those are my territories, including my alliance. We have all signed an alliance contract. I won't compete with you for the division of forces, but what belongs to me, you can't touch. Yi Qinghan slowly stood up and looked down at everyone with a cold gaze. I don't agree. Back then, the myriad law domain was a subordinate force of the Order's sacred ground. Since everyone has discussed and wants to take back their territories, we will be at a disadvantage if we don't have such a large territory. A powerful godson of the Order's sacred ground stood up and argued with the second sorcerer god. I don't agree either. Azura region's territory belonged to my Dao Tian bloodline back then. Second senior, you were the one who brought this up. Naturally, you can't shortchange us, right? Another powerful young man stood up. He had a dignified appearance, and his aura of a king filled the hall. The second sorcerer god frowned and looked at Yi Qinghan. He asked in a hoarse voice, Azura region was developed by you? You are the Azura king? Everyone looked at Yi Qinghan in surprise. Only now did they remember that Yi Qinghan was helping Azura region to fight for territory. Could it be that the Kuang sect and Azura sect were originally the same force? Thump, thump, thump. The hall was so quiet that everyone could hear their heartbeats clearly. The Azura region and the Kuang sect are allies. Naturally, I am not the Azura king. Chapter 1057. Only the sacred grounds could participate in such a gamble. Even the myriad law realm was not qualified to participate. There were too few experts in the younger generation. How could they be compared to the sacred grounds? The second-generation sorcerer god nodded, agreeing with Mo Li's suggestion. The other sacred grounds were naturally willing to gamble. At most, they would wipe out the Kuang sect and take back the territories. Not to mention the treasures and resources, these territories were rich in population and resources. Every year, many elites would be born. This was the reason why the sacred grounds were unwilling to let go. What? The second-generation sorcerer god waved his hand and a huge star map appeared in the side hall. It actually included the entire chaotic universe. The vast ancestral land of the sorcerer race was only a small dot on the map, like a grain of sand in the ocean. One could imagine how big the chaotic universe was. As for the endless galaxies, they were not shown on the map at all. They were too small, so small that they could be ignored. Back then, there were many dangerous lands that we couldn't touch. Now we'll solve them all. Once we're divided, we can't take the initiative to provoke and plunder. If everyone agrees, sign a contract. Within 10,000 years, there won't be any conflicts. Otherwise, we'll all attack, the second-generation sorcerer god said solemnly. 10,000 years was a very long time, enough to develop a new civilization. However, the sixth-generation sorcerer god needed time to cultivate. Otherwise, if he crippled Wu Jiang, the sorcerer race would cripple themselves. The second-generation sorcerer god was not a fool. He would make such a ridiculous decision. Everyone discussed and even sent messages to the sacred grounds to seek the opinions of the clan elders and other experts. Some of the divine sons also discussed and agreed to the second-generation sorcerer god's suggestion. Mo Li and Yushin looked at each other and discussed secretly. Mo Li then said to Qin Wenin, I won't be angry with you if you want to mess around. However, in this gamble, you must stand on the side of the demon god mountain. Is that okay? Qin Wentian's beautiful face turned serious. He couldn't afford to mess around in such a gamble. Otherwise, he would really fall out with the demon god mountain. But I won't make a move against the Kuang sect. You guys better not target the Kuang sect too much, or I'll be in a difficult position, Qin Wentian said in a low voice. Alright, I can cooperate with Yi Qinghan in this wager. Back in the day, there were many territories in the Chaosverse that were unclaimed. Now that we have a wager, the stakes are huge. We have to take over most of them. Although the insane sect doesn't have much of a foundation, they have many experts. If we cooperate, I can give them some benefits. You can talk to him later. Chapter 1059. There was a spiritual lake with a diameter of 100 feet, forming a huge circle. The mountains and rivers were the same color, and thousands of flowers were blooming. Ancient trees were entrenched and lush. Occasionally, a blue bird would soar into the sky and let out a crisp chirp that echoed like the sound of nature. Such a beautiful mountain was rare in the world. Many ancient buildings were built along the mountain. Most of them were quadrangles with doors facing the spiritual lake, suitable for cultivation. Wu Yi led Yi Qinghan and the others into a quadrangle that was in a rather good location. It was surrounded by mountains on 3 sides and water on 1 side. The spiritual energy was dense, and it was indeed a good location. Fellow Yi, you and your friends can stay in this courtyard. There are a total of 7 rooms. You can freely distribute them. Wu Yi smiled, but there was a knife hidden in his smile, causing people to break out in cold sweat. Yi Qinghan carried the unconscious Wu Jiang and walked directly to a side room near the water. He did not even look at Wu Yi. The corner of Wu Ye's mouth twitched, revealing a cold smile. He said lightly, "Fellow Yi, a wise man submits to circumstances. If I were you, I would choose to cooperate with the strong. Wu Jiang is already crippled, and the sorcerer tribe will not allow him to leave the sorcerer tribe's ancestral land alive, so you don't have to waste your time on him." Yi Qinghan stopped in his tracks without looking back. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his strong body revealed a domineering aura. He replied coldly, "Wu Yi, I want to save him, so you can't kill him. As for cooperating with the strong, that's also my idea, but you're not worthy. You, Mo Li, and the people who attacked back then will all be buried together. Although I don't attack now, it doesn't mean that I won't attack in the future. Since you've chosen to fall out with me, then I'll be frank with you about my determination." After speaking, Yi Qinghan directly pushed the door open and entered. He placed Wu Jiang on the bed and opened the window. Sunlight shone on the bed. Perhaps it was the effect of the sacred medicine, but a trace of color finally appeared on Wu Jiang's face. In the courtyard, Wu Yi had a cruel smile on his face. He looked at the 4 strong cultivators guarding the 4 corners, clenched his fists, and finally retreated. Li Feng and the others watched as Wu Yi left. They closed the gate of the courtyard and set up a boundary Dharma seal. Only then did they feel at ease to choose the 4 outermost houses to stay in. In Wu Jiang's room, Yi Qinghan gazed at the spirit lake outside the window and fell into deep thought. After a long time, a painful groan came from behind him. Yi Qinghan turned to look at the awakened Wu Yen and said calmly, "It's good that you're awake. Rest well for the next few days." Wu Yen hadn't expected Yi Qinghan to save him, nor had he expected the 2nd-generation old ancestor to agree to his request. He couldn't help but cultivate bitterly. When he probed his spiritual sea, he discovered that his supreme source had indeed been severed. His eyes were filled with sorrow and despair. "Senior, thank you for saving a cripple like me," Wu Jiang said faintly. Yi Qinghan scolded in dissatisfaction. "It's only the supreme source that has been severed. The martial Tao source hasn't been shattered yet. If you give up now, shouldn't I be doubting my judgment?" Wu Jiang sat up slowly. His fingertips were trembling as he smiled bitterly. "Tell me, why did you take the blame for Wu Yi?" Yi Qinghan stared at Wu Jiang and asked coldly. Wu Jiang leaned against the headboard and looked at the scenery outside the window. After pondering for a long time, he said calmly, "Senior Yi, please don't make things difficult for me. When I was the 6th-generation sorcerer, I couldn't control my fate or protect my family. How can I do that now?" "For your family?" Yi Qinghan knocked on the windowsill. After thinking for a while, he said, "Don't worry, I won't make things difficult for you or let you deal with Wu Yi. Your family will be fine. You can cultivate in peace. After all, you have the bloodline of the sorcerer god. The 2nd-generation sorcerer didn't sever the bloodline inheritance, so he must have tacitly allowed me to save you. If you want to give up on yourself, then kill yourself now. If you don't want to see me die, then don't bother me." With that, Yi Qinghan turned and left the room, leaving behind a confused Wu Jiang. After returning to his room, Yi Qinghan did not try to comprehend the great wasteland steel. After all, the aura was too shocking. Once the divine sons and the 2nd-generation sorcerer god were alerted, they would definitely not be able to protect the great wasteland steel. Yi Qinghan only comprehended a few laws and profound mysteries. He bitterly cultivated the laws that he did not fully understand. When night fell, Yi Qinghan went to the spirit lake alone. Looking at the beautiful mountains and rivers, he realized that the laws and profound mysteries here were much stronger than those of the outside world. Moreover, there were many special forces that were stuck here and had not dissipated even after dozens of eras. It was as if they were attracted by something. There were divine ability stone steels everywhere. Most of them were minor divine abilities and powerful martial technique, profound mysteries. Yi Qinghan looked at the runes and divine words on the stone steels under the moonlight. He realized that they were all low-grade divine abilities. They might be very popular outside, but they were worthless to him. Looking at the center of the lake, Yi Qinghan saw a gentle breeze blowing past and ruffling his hair. He wanted to borrow Yi Qinghan's strength to eliminate the two powerhouses of the Karma Holy Land. It's just that I don't have any martial Dao essence, so it's difficult for me to look at your back. I don't have the confidence to talk to you, so I chose to leave. I hope your highness will be magnanimous enough to forgive me. Yi Qinghan praised. Ji Tian was stunned. Yi Qinghan's words were stuck in his heart and he couldn't refute. He wanted to say something a few times but hesitated. He didn't know what to say. Your highness, the mountains and rivers here are so beautiful. Why don't you find someone who's worthy to talk to you and have a tour? Talking to me is simply a waste of time. Moreover, I'm quite busy, so I won't disturb you any longer. I'll take my leave first. Yi Qinghan turned around to leave. Ji Tian was enraged again. How was this not daring to talk? It was clearly a respectful distance. Yi Qinghan, are you looking down on me? Am I that scary? So that you can leave as soon as you see me? Ji Tian asked angrily. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. His mind spun quickly as he explained, Your Highness, you're overthinking things. I really do have something to do, and I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of your followers. Look at their eyes. If looks could kill, I would have been smashed to pieces. Your Highness, please be magnanimous and spare me. Ji Tian looked at the fiery eyes of the people around him, and his lips curled into a disdainful smile. How could this kind of trash enter his eyes? Those who could talk to her were at least godsons, and second-rate godsons weren't even qualified. You're the sect leader of insane sect. Why would you care about these trash? Aren't you usually arrogant? Ji Tian asked in disdain. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. He really didn't want to talk to her. Sensing that Jiang Jingtan was nearby, he transmitted his voice, I'll leave it to you. I'm going to the sorcerer's shrine. Jiang Jingtian was hiding in the dark with a long spear in his hand. He replied, Sure. After Yi Qinghan heard this, he really didn't want to talk to Ji Tian anymore. He stepped forward again and increased his speed. You're courting death. Ji Tian's demon spirit pulled out a long whip, which transformed into a dragon that shot towards Yi Qinghan's back. It was so fast that if it hit its target, it would pierce through Yi Qinghan's body. However, Yi Qinghan didn't care at all. He didn't even turn his head and stepped more than 10 meters away. Whoosh-boom! Jiang Jingtian used stellar transposition and appeared behind Yi Qinghan. He swung his spear, reversing the flow of time. The spear of time directly hit the long whip, releasing a dazzling divine light. The vast chaotic aura burst out and sent the long whip flying. Ji Tian didn't use his full strength and was easily blocked by Jiang Jingtian. However, Jiang Jingtian didn't use his full strength either. Taoist friend, please step back. Jiang Jingtian's voice was filled with the will of an expert. There was no room for argument. With the Qilin mask and his beast robe fluttering, the chaotic aura spread out. This was a true king. He didn't have any foundation and relied entirely on his own luck and talent. I'd like to see what kind of ability the Kuang sect has to compete with the sacred ground. Ji Tian's fingertip brushed across the bone whip. The bone whip bloomed with light and became straight. It was extremely sharp, as if it was the strongest giant divine weapon with a murderous aura. Jiang Jingtian's body shook. The baby Qilin merged with his body and let out a low roar, causing the surrounding kings to retreat. The spear of time shot out a bolt of lightning, piercing through the void and heading straight for Ji Tian. Jiang Jingtian said coldly, Blades and swords have no eyes. If you dare to attack again, don't blame me for being merciless. Ji Tian's body emitted the Karma Dao technique. It was as if everything was natural. There was a cause and effect, and there were no flaws. The two's surroundings were quickly cleared. No one dared to come within 100 meters. I'd like to see how merciless you are. Ji Tian's blue robe flashed. The ice sword-like bone whip in his hand turned into a dragon that coiled in the air. It tore through space and attacked Jiang Jingtian. The bone whip was 10 feet long. It was like hundreds of powerful dragons. The tip of the whip was even sharper as it pierced towards Jiang Jingtian. Boom, boom, boom. Jiang Jingtian stabbed out more than 10 spears in an instant. The spears turned into spears and swept across, knocking away the bone whip. Each spear contained the purest strength, causing the bone whip to tremble violently. However, Jidan was not to be trifled with. The bone whip collided with the spears, but the tip of the whip suddenly turned around and attacked Jiang Jingtian's waist. Order of Karma, Boundless Tao. Open! Ji Tian shouted. The bone whip split into more than 10 bone swords that pierced towards Jiang Jingtian's limbs and vital points. Qilin Spear Technique. Spirit-shattering spear. Boom, boom. In an instant, Jiang Jingtian thrusted out thousands of spear strikes. Each spear strike contained a terrifying amount of power, equivalent to 1,000 of his peak attacks. Not only did he repel the bone sword, but he also aimed for Ji Tian's throat. Karma Dao Technique. God says that there is a cause and effect. Ji Tian's body fell back. His left foot touched the ground, and his right foot kicked towards the spear of time. The bone whip in his hand actually shrank, turning into a sharp bone sword that pierced towards Jiang Jingtian's heart. It was too fast and there was no trace of it. Ordinary kings would definitely be killed. She had the right to be arrogant. Chapter 1061. Ji Tian's reaction was extremely fast. Be it in terms of speed or strength, she was a top-notch existence. Others wouldn't be able to react in time, but she was facing Jiang Jingtian, an existence that could fight with a transformed demon wolf for 10 years. Jiang Jingtian pressed down with both hands and leaped into the air, borrowing the force of the impact to soar into the air and evade the fatal strike. Bang! Ji Tian was just a mortal. Even if she had the bloodline of the karma over God, she couldn't be compared to Jiang Jingtian, who had fused with the Qilin. Her left leg couldn't withstand the pressure and collapsed to the ground. Her internal organs were almost crushed, and her blood was in turmoil. Seeing Jiang Jingtian descending from the sky with a dazzling spear, she couldn't help but roll away, dodging his powerful attack. Screech Jiang Jingtian's spear pierced the stone floor. Another force came from the ground, making the surrounding 100 meters indestructible. The aftershock sent him flying. Screech an ear-piercing screech resounded as the spear pierced through the void. Jiang Jingtian's body was almost distorted in the air, but the attack was flawless, catching Ji Tian off guard. Jiang Jingtian's combat strength wasn't inferior to Yi Qinghan's. His combat skills were cultivated through life and death situations, and were definitely far superior to Ji Tian's. Even if her true strength exceeded Jiang Jingtian's, she still wouldn't be his opponent in a short period of time. Boom! Ji Tian was caught off guard and clashed with the spear with her sword. She was sent flying by the terrifying force, only stopping after being pushed back a few hundred meters. Jiang Jingtian put away his spear and stood proudly. He stared at Ji Tian and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist, we have no enmity between us. There's no need to continue fighting. Farewell." "What's your name?" Ji Tian didn't know whether to be angry or shocked. She stared at Jiang Jingtian, unable to understand why she had lost to an unknown young man. A nameless junior, not worth mentioning. Jiang Jingtian didn't want to say more and turned to leave. Ji Tian's figure flashed and blocked Jiang Jingtian's path. She exuded a feminine aura and firmly said, "You're so strong. It's a waste for you to help a trash with a shattered martial source in a second-rate force like the Mad Sect. Why don't you choose a tree to live in and help me? In the future, when I rule the world, I will reward you generously. The world's beauty is yours to choose from." Ji Tian's words were qualified. Even Ji Tianling didn't think there was a problem. If she had someone like Jiang Jingtian's help, even Martial King Ji Tian would be suppressed. "I'm not interested." Regardless of whether Brother Ye's martial arts source is broken or not, he is still worthy of my assistance. Your Highness, please step aside. Jiang Jingtian firmly rejected him. Many experts were exasperated at Jiang Jingtian's failure to live up to their expectations. If such a good thing happened to them, they would have to kneel down and snatch it for themselves. Motherfucker, the Sky Overlord said hoarsely, staring coldly at Jiang Jinghan from afar. What an idiot! Is there something wrong with this guy's brain? If he agreed to help Ji Tian become a paramount god, he'd definitely marry her. With a paramount god as his wife, he'd die in peace. Martial King Ji Tianxian did not want Jiang Jingtian to agree. Jiang Jingtian's strength was close to that of the strongest son of God. If he assisted Ji Tian, the family's power would definitely lean towards his cousin. If that happened, what would he do in the future? Ji Tian frowned at Jiang Jingtian. She didn't understand why Jiang Jingtian would refuse. The conditions were very clear. She could pick anything she wanted, including herself. Wasn't this attractive enough? Could Yi Qinghan give her more? Even if his martial source wasn't shattered, he couldn't compete with her. Why don't you think about it for a while? Don't be in a hurry to answer me. Wait until you see the world situation. Ji Tian didn't want to give up. Jiang Jingtian didn't want to stay any longer. He nodded and chased after Yi Qinghan. At this moment, Yi Qinghan had already stepped into the Sorcerer God's palace. The huge Sorcerer God's palace was more than twice the size of the side palace. 9 huge dragon pillars were curled upwards, and there were many smaller dragon pillars supporting them. The palace was empty, and only the second-generation Sorcerer God was sitting on his throne. Yi Qinghan stepped over the threshold and walked towards the second-generation Sorcerer God. The shrine was thousands of meters deep. When he was 20 meters away from the second-generation Sorcerer God, he bowed and said, "Senior, may I know why you've summoned Qinghan? Come up. There's only you and me here. There's no need to be so formal." The second-generation Sorcerer God's old face was full of worry. Yi Qinghan walked up the stairs to the throne. There were 2 chairs on the left and right of the throne. They were made of jade and emitted pure spiritual energy. Yi Qinghan chose the chair on the left and sat down. He stared at the Sorcerer God and asked, "Senior, what's the problem? Why don't you tell me? I might be able to help." The second-generation Sorcerer God sighed and took out the supreme source. He said helplessly, "In the huge sorcerer tribe, there's no one who can catch my eye and inherit this supreme source." Yi Qinghan's eyebrows twitched. He didn't expect the second-generation Sorcerer God to still not have a good candidate. He frowned and said, "Senior, since you don't have a suitable candidate, why are you in such a hurry to cut off Wu Zhang's source? Moreover, the one who was truly wrong in the matter of Guangzhong wasn't Wu Jiang, but Wu Yi." Chapter 1063. Yi Qinghan was locked in the temporal space by the second-generation Sorcerer God, but the outside world was in turmoil. Ji Tian Demon Spirit extended an olive branch to Jiang Jingtian, but Ji Tian Divine Martial King was naturally unwilling. He was now working with the Sky Overlord to create a gap between the two. At this time, the god sons of the various sacred grounds were also restless. They wanted to challenge the experts from all sides, but most of them had their eyes on the insane sect because they had no foundation and were easy to bully. There were also some low-key forces that chose to watch from the sidelines. At night, the sorcerer race's territory was filled with battle intent. Billions of stars were twinkling, and it was as bright as day. Jiang Jingtian retreated from the Sorcerer God's palace, but he was stopped halfway by Ji Tian Divine Martial King. The two of them suppressed each other and rushed into the 9 heavens. "You're the one who pestered my sister? As her elder brother, I would like to help her see if you have the qualifications. Not just anyone can climb up to my Ji Tian family." Ji Tian Martial King coldly said. Jiang Jingtian clenched the spear of time and took 2 steps back. He was not prepared to fight with Ji Tian Divine Martial King. He said calmly, "You've misunderstood. I'm not interested in following Ji Tian family's princess. Please step aside." Ji Tian Divine Martial King sneered and said sarcastically, "Aren't the insane sect all arrogant? Now that I've seen them today, I see that they're all cowards. Yi Qinghan was provoked and didn't dare to fight. Even the elders of the sect were provoked and didn't dare to fight. What cowards? Jiang Jingtian took a deep breath and adjusted his state. He still didn't want to fight. Now that Yi Qinghan was taken away by the sorcerer god, if he and Ji Tian Divine Martial King were to suffer heavy injuries, the four of them wouldn't be able to escape if something happened to Yi Qinghan. Wu Jiang was also heavily injured. Humph. Jiang Jingtian snorted, but he wasn't angry. He took his spear and left. At this time, Ji Tian Lingkong appeared and mocked. Big brother, he didn't fight because he didn't like you. I saw him fight with Seven Sister just now. He's not a coward. He's definitely comparable to a god's son. A cold light flashed in Martial King Ji Tianxin's eyes. He was extremely disdainful of Ji Tianling. If it weren't for the fact that the clan didn't allow internal strife, he would have killed him long ago. Ji Tianling Lingkong couldn't wait for his brother and Jiang Jingtian to fight. It would be best if both sides were heavily injured or Jiang Jingtian would suffer a loss. Then Yi Qinghan would come out and kill his brother. At this moment, he was looking at Ji Tianxin Martial King with an evil smile, wanting to provoke him. Jiang Jingtian was extremely intelligent. He could see that the internal strife in this family was very intense. Chapter 1064. Hundreds of masters were gathered in the wide space near the training field. They were all king elites. The two divine princes had teamed up to humiliate and provoke the Kuang sect. Their words were harsh because they were confident. The sorcerer tribe did not interfere. They chose to watch from the sidelines. More and more masters gathered. Although the competition between the divine princes was fierce, they had their own interests and glory. They would not allow outsiders to steal the glory of the divine princes. In the end, two more divine princes appeared. Although they were not the chief divine princes, their combat power was top-notch. They were Li Chunfeng, the third divine prince of the Order's Sacred Ground, and Dao Tian Yunfei of the Dao Tian clan. The four of them each blocked one of the four from the Kuang sect. They were ready to fight. Dao Tian Yunfei held a sky-splitting divine bow. It was as tall as a man. The bowstring was made from the tendons of a giant python. When it exploded, it could destroy stars. This divine bow was the divine weapon of the sky-splitting giant god. It was a chaotic giant god weapon that had been passed down for generations. The sky-splitting divine bow only had 3 divine arrows. They could penetrate a giant god weapon and tear apart a supreme master's source. It also had the tracking ultimacy. Once locked on, almost no one could escape. Li Chunfeng was the divine prince of the Order's Sacred Ground. He was the third divine prince of the Order's Sacred Ground. He had reached the minor completion realm of Order. The 4 divine princes faced off against the 4 masters. Wu Yan did not have his source and could only watch. He could not do anything. In a one-on-one fight, the Kuang sect lost. After all, they were far inferior to the divine princes in terms of foundation, weapons, great path occult secret techniques, and divine powers. However, they did not lose in terms of momentum. Zixian looked at Dao Tian Yunfei coldly and said, "If you dare to attack, I will not let you have the chance to draw your bow. Get out of here. This has nothing to do with you. Zixian, you are too arrogant. Even your brother, the Purple Saint, does not dare to talk to me like this." Dao Tian Yunfei replied coldly. At this moment, the Violet Saint flew over. His deep eyes were even more captivating compared to the boundless Milky Way, causing people to be mesmerized with a single glance. His arrival caused Ji Tianxin and the others to be extremely cautious. They didn't know if he would choose to help his sister or bring Zixian away. The Purple Sage was very calm. He looked at Zixian and said indifferently, "Xian heir, you have been away for too long. Have you forgotten about home?" "Brother, I didn't." Zixian pursed his lips, as if he didn't want to have a conflict with the Purple Saint. "Are you still fighting with father? All these years, you've been wandering around without saying a word." The arrow and the divine sword formed a powerful force that forced the Polychoria light back. "You're courting death." At this moment, Qin Wendian suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Dao Tian Yunfei. Slap. Qin Wendian raised her jade-like hand and slapped Dao Tian Yunfei's face. The empty spirit body ignored Dao Tian Yunfei's qi defense and directly appeared in front of him. Sometimes, even Mo Li couldn't react in time, let alone Dao Tian Yunfei. This kind of monstrous physique was too heaven-defying. She was simply the darling of the heavens. Her movements were invisible and traceless. Dao Tian Yunfei was sent flying by Qin Wendian's slap. However, while he was in the air, he was extremely angry. He waved his hand and summoned his natal divine arrow. He wanted to kill the spirit body who humiliated him. The natal divine arrow was imbued with the great Tao. The sharp runes carried a terrifying attack power. It was obviously not an ordinary item. Hissed at when the divine arrow was placed on the bowstring, the divine light on it tore the space apart. People 1,000 meters away could clearly see the space around the divine arrow shattering. Without a doubt, once this divine arrow pierced through the body of a god, it would be difficult for the giant god to escape death. Mo Li stood in the distance. He frowned. With a flip of his wrist, the demon god's spear appeared in his hand. He stomped his foot, causing the ground to tremble. His body was like a rainbow as he brandished the spear and attacked Dao Tian Yunfei. What? A deep gully appeared in the sky. The tip of the spear emitted light. It was extremely sharp. It swept past Qin Wendian's head and ruthlessly struck Dao Tian Yunfei's spear. This time, there was one more person on the Kuang school's side. The situation changed again. Qin Wendian turned around and punched Li Chuanfeng's head. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.